this presentation is about outreach, specifically community outreach. We'll have one about industry outreach later. But yeah, community outreach. Hello. I don't have to. Oh, there we go. It worked. Okay. So the things we're going to be covering include what is community outreach? Why should you do community outreach? Finding and setting up events. We're going to talk a bit about presentations and public speaking. We're going to be talking about event planning and how to plan community outreach events. And then we'll also talk about some tips and examples of events that we've done. Okay, starting off, what is community outreach? Okay, community outreach is primarily for connecting and giving back to the community. So, like I said in our earlier presentation, it's about interactions within and outside of FIRST. So, for example, this bottom picture here is our team at FIRST Fair last year, which would be in community outreach within FIRST because it was, you know, all FIRST teams doing that. But then we also have outreach like this top picture, which was our team did like a summer camp thing, but it wasn't during the summer. It was like a fall camp thing called More Hands on Tech, where we taught kids about Lego robotics and basically we had like a curriculum and stuff like that and taught them about that stuff. So that would be outside of FIRST community outreach. Yeah, so this really is important because it encourages sharing knowledge and interacting positively with other teams. Connection with other teams is super duper important, and I feel like it's definitely one of the things that makes being in FIRST and being an FTC team so much fun, is just being able to connect and talk with so many other people. Outside of FIRST, outreach tends to be focused on promoting FIRST and promoting STEM. So in the example of our More Hands on Tech camp, we were kind of promoting and we were not only promoting FIRST, but we are also getting young kids interested in STEM at an early age, so they will hopefully continue on in the future. Okay, why should you do community outreach? So not only does it connect with the community and raise awareness for youth STEM programs and really helps kind of the foundation of kids getting into STEM, it also helps others and fosters an environment that is both friendly and competitive within FIRST, which is what makes it so fun. Also, it makes a huge difference. You can do some really, really cool outreach stuff that then, you know, it does make a difference. It's not just like you're, you know, doing it for nothing. And then another thing that is also good for your team is that it helps during judging, presenting about your outreach and showing how your team has spread FIRST and talked about FIRST with the community is I know gets you points.
I also wanted to clarify that the difference between community outreach and industry outreach, because we're talking about industry outreach later, is that industry outreach is usually getting knowledge from like STEM professionals. So whereas community outreach is more for giving back to the community.
Exactly. So industry outreach would be more like talking to professionals, having interviews, or going to tour places, stuff like that. Works now. Okay. Finding and setting up events. So you can do a lot of things to connect with the community and set up outreach events for your team. Some examples of stuff that we like to do are volunteering for different FIRST competitions, like the FRC Girls Gen competition. Our team almost always goes and helps them out and volunteers for that. Talking to STEM businesses, which I think that's actually more industry outreach. But then also participating and being at farmers markets or fairs or bazaars or stuff like that happening in your community. Just having like a booth there or coming and bringing your robot and driving it around and answering questions is a really great way to do local community outreach. If your local area has a paper or a newsletter, you can look in that to look for events that are happening and see if you can connect and get and be there for those things. But you can also see if they will spread the word about your team through them. And then another thing that we tend to go to a lot is science fairs or science nights at schools, which is this bottom left picture. We bring our robot and kind of get to talk and interact with a lot of kids, which is really fun. And then ORTOP, there's also opportunities within ORTOP for outreach. So ORTOP has a newsletter that they send out that oftentimes has opportunities. And then you can also visit the ORTOP website. Within that, there's an events page and a volunteer page. The events page shows like what events are going on, volunteer, how you can sign up to volunteer for those events. And typically those are like they're competitions and stuff from either FLL, FTC, or FRC. But yeah, they might have some other stuff too.
Cool. Public speaking and presentations. So in first, you will likely be teaching as a part of outreach, especially community outreach. So for instance, we had our more hands-on tech camp thing. So they had to teach for that. And a lot of options like presenting at First Fair or like these making seminars involve like teaching. So a good idea for public speaking and presenting is to have like a rough outline of what you want to say. So that's like the bullet points on the slides. You also shouldn't like over prepare. I know that for me personally, over preparing is a problem because in ACS, which was our school's speech class, I would memorize word for word what I was going to say for my presentations. And it was really tedious and really difficult to do. And I really didn't need to put that much effort into them. And you don't need to put that much effort into public speaking and presenting, especially in the first community. Like people understand if you are not the smoothest with your presentation, and it's not too difficult to improvise. But also if you know your topic well, you'll be able to hit anything that comes your way, like questions, you'll be able to answer the questions well, and you won't run out of things to talk about because you'll know the ins and outs of your topic. It's good to also like read before and like practice, so you just get a quick refresher on what you're doing, especially if you prepared for your presentation a really long time ago and then you're presenting like a month later. Be sure to fit the audience. So for instance, if you're presenting to like younger kids, then you may not want to start talking about gracious professionalism. Because first of all, they don't care. Second of all, it's probably like too much for them. And but if you're talking to a team of like, if you're talking to like other teams, then you may want to think about being more specific with your details so they can actually use this information practically. Whereas kids, you just want to like give them the basic information so that they know vaguely what's happening. Make sure to project. It means nothing if your audience cannot hear you. And remember to save time for questions, which is a little ironic because we failed last time. But
yeah, one thing I'll say about like the content that you're presenting, like our slideshows, it's a really great idea to remember to have photos because that makes it a lot more interesting to look at visually. And if you're presenting to younger kids, you might want to have cool like cartoons or something like that in it to make it more visually interesting for them and keep their attention for longer.
Event planning. So, here's a general guideline of what you should do to plan for events. So you should figure out what your or any community needs. So then you can figure out like, where can we be of the most help? That way you can brainstorm different ways your team can help or connect with people and decide like what you need. For instance, well, I guess we'll talk about an example later, but you might need to like get rides and carpools, and you might need to get like certain like spike prime kits or something to give to younger students to teach them. And then communicate to get resources. So make sure you have your resources and plan for your event specifics. This is a very general process for getting started with setting up your own outreach event. It's definitely not an extensive list of what you should do. But these are definitely some points that you should hit, or if you're stuck, where you should go to. So examples and tips. So some tips. collaborate with other teams. Not only is that great for that's like another sort of outreach in itself because you're connecting with other teams. And also it's helpful to have like a little bit of your workload like shared with another team, especially if it's a really big project. Don't be afraid to reaching out to people. It's a bit of a cliche, but worst they can say is no. You have to like put yourself out there to conduct outreach, and it's always worth a try. Do things that are fun to do with your team. If your team is not interested in the outreach, they will not go to it. It's true. But so make sure you get input from your team members on what they want to do. That way you can also have fun while also being of help to the community. Don't forget to take photos and document your outreach for the end of the season. It's really useful for a lot of awards and you can talk about it to the judges and usually they will actually definitely ask something or a lot of things about your outreach. So it's good to have like kind of proof you were there and documentation for like memories of what happened. So our example is MPOT, which is the camp we mentioned earlier. Our goal was to provide more opportunities for elementary school students to get STEM experience. So we decided to start a summer camp for younger kids in like elementary school age. And we like made a curriculum and stuff like that. We decided on what to use, which was like EV3 Mindstorm. We knew that we already had EV3 kids and from the Lake Oswego robotics community. So we were able to use those really conveniently, which is kind of why we picked them. And then we communicated with our school district to get a venue and send out information for registration. It worked really well. We, I think people tried to sign up even after we hit the maximum amount of slots that we had. So it was like a huge success. We created lesson plans and then we trained 5 of our team members to be teachers. And so they had it once a week after schools and they would, they held their like, I don't know how long.
It was over the course of 8 weeks, one class each week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say this was not only a really great outreach opportunity for us, but it also functioned as fundraising for our team as well. Because this camp was paid, we were able to fundraise over $1,000 for our team, which we were then able to use later on in the season and make sure that so your outreach doesn't have to be solely for outreach. You can tie it in with other things as well, such as fundraising or going to a specific company just so that you can learn about their process and then put it into your own robot and use those ideas to help build and modify your own robot. So yeah, I think that was everything. So again, if you have any contact, does anyone have any questions?
You can like type it in chat or like unmute it.
Yes. Wait.
Coolio. Looks like we do not have any questions. So if if you change your mind, you can contact us through Instagram, posting our seminars on our YouTube. You can email us as well.
Yes. I hope you're learning a lot.